Hey, it's Rebecca Rutherford. Welcome to the What in the Well podcast. My friend Angie Huber and I are here to provide an entertaining and relatable perspective on well-being. If you want to shift your mindset and make incremental progress toward your work and home life goals, you are in the right place. Hi, how are you?
Great. Happy Friday to you.
Whoop. This was a week, man.
How you feeling? What are you celebrating? What are you celebrating from this week?
Well, I'm celebrating my 42nd birthday.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
for real. I'm
Happy
celebrating.
birthday.
Thank you. And I feel like with my birthdays, I do choose to have like a birthday week. You know, I feel like that's better than trying to cram it all into one day. Just like a little bit of birthday here
Yeah.
and there. So,
Well, and it's a time to celebrate you. So why only have it be a day, right?
I don't want that. No. Like some people are like, oh, I would much rather like give gifts than receive them. And I'm kind of like, I don't know. I like getting stuff. Yeah.
Let's just be real.
Yeah. I love
All
getting
right.
stuff.
So you're celebrating your birthday. What else are you celebrating?
It just feels like a big season of transition. So I think I'm celebrating the fact that some days I'm doing better than others with it, but then
Yeah.
ultimately I just know that I'm growing. It
Yeah.
can be painful, but it's a growth season. So
What's coming up for me is getting ready to go into our lives are kind of in chapters with 7 years. And so you're right at that next 7 years. Like I'm 43. So I'm
yeah.
entering into the next 7 years phase.
Yeah.
And so listeners, wherever phase you're at, if you actually take your life and like look at it like 0 to 7, I already
Yes.
can't do math that fast, 8 to 15 or 16, right? And then take it into chapters and
Yeah.
really think about like, what's this chapter all about?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
for me, I don't know. And so what you're experiencing is
Right.
that's very normal for this chapter of where you're going.
Yeah.
I have found it to be, I'm calling it my 40s are my awakening. Like
Yes.
I'm in this deep awakening that
Yeah.
is there's some hardness to it. There's some healing that's coming
Yeah.
to it. There's in some ways I feel like I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
Like it's this awakening for
Yeah.
me.
I'm totally with you. Yeah. And it's funny because when you hear awakening, you feel like it sounds blissful, right? It sounds like, refreshing. But when you think about it, like, I don't know about you, the moment I wake up in the morning every day is the worst moment of that day. Because I just feel like I lost a bet. Like, what did I sleep? I don't know. So I just like wake up and I'm just, my body is heavy and I'm groggy and I'm dragging and I'm like, not again. But then, like you kind of like power through that.
Mhm.
And ultimately, if you know, like if you do get through that with some sort of a like optimistic attitude, that it can't get any worse,
Yeah.
then what it becomes is like, okay, this is the day ahead of me. It's nothing but opportunity. Like I can choose to see this differently. I can start fresh today. Like awakening is that process of like kind of getting punched in the face with some new realities, right?
Well,
Kind of getting
yeah.
like socked upside the head with like, oh my gosh, I'm like unpacking everything that I thought I knew up until this point. And
Yeah.
then looking at it like, now how do I choose to move forward?
And some of the stuff we've talked about on previous episodes is using our mental practices to get us there quicker
Yeah.
because awakening, I imagine it like how I feel most days is this awakening, this learning, this new I feel like I've been dropped on a new planet most days
Sure.
and it is dark.
Yeah.
Like there's hope, there's new opportunity. I feel like it's all new
Yeah.
and I don't know. And I'm on this new planet
Yeah.
and it's like I see the light but
Yeah.
it does start dark.
Yeah. So have you ever read Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz? I can't say it. Don Miguel Ruiz, the
it's
author of
on
Four
it's
Agreements.
on it's on my nightstand right now. That has
Good.
been the book. We haven't talked about this yet, huh?
No.
The Four Agreements, I read it found me in December and I started reading it and it has literally rocked me to my core in a good
Yeah.
way.
So
So
yeah,
what I love that that's coming up for you
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's literally on my nightstand right now.
It is one of the most powerful books that I've ever read because fundamentally, the four agreements about, embracing like not taking things personally or not making assumptions and doing your best and all that. But what he starts the book with is about this whole concept that, like, up until this point, you've been domesticated by the
Yes.
planet, is what he calls it. And I feel like this whole awakening process is about deconstructing all of that domestication that you got and deciding for yourself, like, what of that works for me and what of it doesn't, and choosing to rebuild this present and future version of your life that more aligns with who you are before the world got its sticky, grubby fingers on you.
And listeners, if you haven't read the Four Agreements and if you're ready to like take this awakening, go pick up the Four Agreements and just read
Yeah.
that first chapter because
Yeah.
that is, Rebecca, literally the catalyst for why I feel like I'm being awakened.
Awesome.
I have like the what's it called? Domestication. It's
Domestication.
almost
Yep.
like I was reading it like, oh my gosh, I have fallen under the trance of
Yes.
what has been created for me. And so now I'm like,
Yeah.
I get to unlearn everything. And
Yeah.
now I'm curious. I'm not upset about anything, but I'm curious and questioning everything
Yes.
in my life up to this point. And I'm
Yes.
like, I have been domesticated by that. And now that I'm awakened, I'm like, I get to rewrite it. And it's
Yeah.
so empowering.
Right.
And the book for me, again, when I say it's rattled me to my core because of that, it's literally helping me be curious and question everything.
Same. Yep.
Um, in a really, really good way. However, it is very heavy is not the word. It's deep.
Yeah.
So like I can only read it a couple pages at a time and like, oh, okay, I gotta
Yeah.
set this one. That's why it's been on my nightstand. And I've been
Mhm.
reading it since December and it's March. Now I'm almost done. I'm in
Yeah.
the fourth agreement, but
Yeah.
it's been life changing.
It's a chipper. Yeah. You need to like chip
Sure.
away at it. You can't just like, especially if you want to soak some of it in. And I
Right.
will say, like, I 100% agree on the first chapter. It is a little woo, because he's bringing the perspective of like Toltec wisdom, which, is like looking at the stars and all that stuff. So in the beginning, you're kind of like, all right, where are we going with this? But like when you get into the essence of what he's communicating about, like, yeah, like how culturally we are for our own good and benefit during that season of our lives, we are kind of told how to think and behave. But that's like a cultural requirement of being part of a community. But then you get to a certain point where you're like able to self-sustain and choose. Is that how I want to go or go forward? Or is, there's something better for me? And
What's the
that
new
is the awakening. Yeah.
and it's like I want to domesticate myself now, right? Like
Yeah.
where am I going to go choose to domesticate myself?
Right.
What's the new domestication?
Right.
So let's talk about so our topic today is being your authentic self, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
how do you take in all the domestication, all the layers that we've like put on ourselves?
Yeah.
How do you get back to the root? Like
Right.
how do we honor and get back to the root of who we just are as our authentic selves?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
authentic self mean to you?
So for me, the authentic self it's the essence of who I am before the planet got its grubby fingers on me and chose for me who I was and put all of these identity ideas on me. And again, not that any of those were necessarily bad because they were in some ways useful. Um, Authenticity is returning back to that person that you were before you started asking questions about how the world worked, or before you woke up to the heaviness of life. So, what's interesting with the timing of this for me is that because it was my birthday this week, I always get extra introspective. And because I woke up at 2 a.m. instead of 5:45 a.m., I just started journaling on
Mhm.
my birthday. And I like wrote my life story. I don't know why. I just like started just writing. Like, man, 42 years ago, I was like no longer, a zygote that had turned into a fetus and all this. And what I realized is like there's a first part of my life where I was delightfully clueless.
Delightfully clueless.
I was
I like it.
delightfully clueless. And as I grew and I started looking for answers, that came with it a lot of consequence. Because when you're looking for answers for some things that are completely unanswerable, it's hard to be content.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, I feel like this season of life, my authentic self is trying to remember what I was like when I was joyful and delightfully clueless.
And what age was that for you? Do you have a
I,
picture? Do you have
yeah. Oh, I actually have a picture up right here of me. And it's funny because
bring
I
it in?
found
'Cause
this picture.
I have mine. We're gonna introduce our authentic selves to each other and
Okay, cool.
to our listeners.
That's cute. I saw a little pigtails. I think
Wait
it was
until I
up in,
introduce you to her. Wait till I
yeah.
introduce you to her. Then you're gonna be like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Well, I feel like it was to answer your question about timing, it was up until probably about middle school. Like I
Mm.
think somewhere around fifth, sixth, seventh grade. Well, I watch it with my daughter who's in fifth grade. Like she is waking up to the heaviness of life, and I just really don't want that for her.
She's not delightfully clueless anymore.
Right. Exactly. What about you?
As far as for me, the timing,
Yeah.
yeah, probably fourth grade.
Yeah.
You know,
And
we
what does
start to,
oh god.
my mom gave me she brought over a couple of years ago something we had to write. Like I think it was like in fourth or fifth grade. And I don't know where she found it from, but found and we had to write who we wanted to be in the world and what were we curious about and like
Yeah.
what are we going to be when we grow up? And it's fascinating at that age, so
Yeah.
9 or 10, and I read it and go, wow. So much of that is so much of what had like I'm there, I'm working on that. Like it's
Yeah.
like I thought that at 9 or 10
Yeah.
and you forget it. And it's so much of like, oh my gosh, what was important to me, the values that I held, the things I wanted to do, the things I was curious about in life. It was like spot on
Yeah.
in an amazing, like in all way.
Yeah. So what does that tell you now about your authentic self?
It's there.
Yeah.
Like it's there. It's the to your point, when we start to become um not clueless, right? And maybe less delightful. It's the realities start getting put on, or it's things that we start masking
Yeah.
sometimes ourselves, or something happens to us and we put a layer of protection on so we
Yeah.
don't get hurt, or our parents put some protection on us so that we don't get hurt, or like we're constantly putting up barriers and things over ourselves that sometimes we get buried in
Yeah.
it and we lose the essence.
Yeah.
Lose the essence. So
Yeah.
here, I'll introduce you to my five. This is my 5-year-old authentic self. So let me give you some context before I introduce you to her. I'm currently in a coaching program called PQ. So it's positive intelligence. And so if you think IQ, right, we all know what IQ is. And you got EQ, which is emotional intelligence. I want you to think of PQ as a subset of EQ. So it's one of the many components. And this coaching program that I've been in, it's really the essence of it is getting to know your saboteurs.
Hmm.
So the ones that keep you stuck and keep you protected and keep you from not moving forward and keeping us small and in the box and domesticated, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the sage, they talk about the sage, or your authentic self, is who are you
Yeah.
at your core?
Yeah.
And they hold the belief that who you are at your core is who you were born the moment you were born, right?
Hmm.
Like who you are. And so we had to do an exercise a couple weeks ago of we had to go get a picture of ourselves around, from 0 to like around 10. I think 9 or 10 was the cutoff. And we did a ton of meditation around this. We did some group learning around it. So, and it's been fantastic. So here is Angie Bellman at the time. Here's Angie. She's 5. And Angie, the essence of me is playful,
Mm-hmm.
curious, an explorer,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of a rebel. So you can see, like I'm getting this is like my kindergarten picture. And
Yeah.
I'm sure the cameraman's wanting me to look at the camera, and I'm like, I'll look, but maybe just a little bit off, right? Like just unique, doing my own thing, going
Yeah.
at the beat of my drum. And the more I get to know her and connect back to her, peeling off the layers and the
Yeah.
domestication and all the
Yeah.
things, it's just like, this is me at
Yeah.
my core, playful, curious, exploring, going, skipping down, singing my song, not caring who in the heck is watching. If you want
Right.
to come along, come. If you don't, you do you, kind of
Right.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. Like, the more I get
Mm-hmm.
connected with her and this essence of who I am, and how do I integrate that into me and this awakening
Right.
today?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
The essence of me, and I love her, and I want to continue to access her
Oh,
because that's who I am.
yeah.
Take it all off, right? Take all the expectations and society expectations and the domestication and the hurt and the
Yeah.
victim and the blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
This is how I want to show up
Right.
in
I
the
love that.
moments
Yeah.
at work, with my family, for myself.
Yeah.
How am I curious, playful, joyful,
Yeah.
skipping around, lighthearted?
Yeah. I love that.
How about you? Introduce me to you.
Can you see her?
Oh my gosh. I think I want, I think these two want to hang out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They would have gotten in some trouble.
Oh my gosh. I love it. All right. Yes.
So,
Introduce me to her.
okay. So this young lady is at least four, because this is in the house we moved into after I was 4. So I know that much. She, if you can see in her eyeballs, she is probably up to something no good, right? She was curious. She was sweet. She wanted people to love her. She, oops, it went bye-bye. She had a huge imagination. So those toys in her hand are Batman and probably Robin. Not sure what's in the other hand.
Looks like
She
a cookie you like stole off the counter or something.
That's
Like an
actually probably accurate. Which, by the way, I have an older brother, and those are his toys. I was constantly
oh,
stealing his stuff. Um, I so I was a very curious and highly imaginative child. So I would go. There was a staircase in our home. It was a split level, and I would hide under the staircase and play with my toys. I had a huge imagination. I could sit down in front of pieces of paper and I created paper forests all the time. They were complex forests. I could make trees stand up. I made little animals and I would sit in front of those and play all day. My mom always talks about how I would sit there with my things and just whisper back and forth. They were playing and like I could do that for hours. And I also, my outfit, this sweatsuit that I was wearing, that was because I retaliated against jeans. And so back to this freaking amazing turquoise
It is
sweatsuit.
amazing.
It
It's
is
so
amazing.
authentic
It's
though.
so authentic. Well, and here I am, like, this is why, as many things that were horrible about the pandemic, the one thing that it brought me back to was my sweatpants self. Because back then I was like, I loved to crawl around on the ground and play outside and climb trees. And jeans are like denim leg prisons that prevent you from moving about.
Domestication. Again, it's another thing they introduced to us to
Yeah.
domesticate us.
Like,
We're gonna
what is
keep
all
you
this?
tight and constricted in these things.
I mean, come on. So
Expand. Put on some dang
yeah.
sweatpants
I
already.
ditched all that. But yeah, so I look at myself and I see somebody who was delighted in simplicity, curious, huge imagination, but also empathic. If you look in my eyes, you can see this part of me that's absorbing. Most likely it was my mom who took the picture. And for people in my life that I love, and even strangers sometimes too, I am very quick to soak up the feeling in the room, the vibe in the place, to find the person who needs the most like attention and care and go directly to that person. So it's just interesting when I look at this picture of myself from my youth, I'm like, that's who I was. That's who I always have been,
Yeah.
and then
What do you
also,
love about her now?
what do I love
Her
about,
then. Yes.
oh gosh. Well, first of all, she's the gosh darn adorable.
I mean,
So
so cute, right?
I, I
I
would
do too. I
snuggle.
look at her with love. Like, you are
Yeah.
cute.
Well, I think
So
I've forgotten how to adore myself, I really do. I think that's part of the deal in like awakening to your authentic self is like you didn't realize that you adored yourself back then because all you knew how to do is like play and experiment and have fun or whatever by nature. And you just kind of adore your own company or whatever. Like, yeah, it's not like everything was always easy, but I look at that girl and I'm like, gosh, she's adorable. And I look at myself in the mirror now and I'm like, am I adorable? Like, do I do adore worthy things or can I just be inherently adorable again?
yeah.
Because it wasn't about what I was doing for anybody back then. I was just
And
adorable.
playful and curious, like you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
and creative
Yeah.
and empathetic and wearing your dang sweatpants that
Every day,
rock.
all day. Yep. It's my uniform. How do you look at that version of yourself and what do you feel about her?
Yeah, I just want to get back to that each and every day. Like,
Yeah.
how do I access that?
Yeah.
Because it's who I am, it's in me, right? And so I now, since we've done this exercise with the coaching program, I mean, I have it right here, it's accessible.
Yeah.
Uh, but also remembering now, like, so as I'm getting up in the morning and I'm doing my morning, like, I am statements and
Yeah.
gratitude journal, my mental fitness practices that we've talked
Yeah.
about.
Mm-hmm.
One of our previous sessions, it's how do I access I am those things. I am
Yeah.
playful. I am exploring. I am curious. I
Mm-hmm.
am a little bit of a rebel. I am trying new things.
Right.
How do I access this energy and get connected um, to her now and celebrate that?
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
will tell you, the more I'm doing that, so it's accessing who I am. And again, I've been in this kind of coaching program now for 7 weeks. Here's what I'm noticing. I'm just letting go more of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's allowing me to really be present in the moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like dancing through the moments a little bit lighter, right?
Yeah.
Like because I'm accessing that who I am.
Right.
And it's this notion of kind of what we're talking about at the top of the hours, everything's figure outable. Like, it's all
Right.
figure outable and we can do the hard things. And how do I do it with my authentic self? So the more
Yeah.
I let go of here's what other people need me to be, here's what society has told me to be, here's the layers I put on myself to protect myself, the more
Mm-hmm.
I just get all of that out and just get to the essence of who I am,
Yeah.
it's again allowing the awakening to just kind of unfold as it needs to unfold.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. In a practical sense, I think, we really start to become super serious when we become a lot of times too, it's like when you have bills and you pay taxes and you have careers and you have, all of these things tugging at you all the time. And we lose our ability to put energy into like laughter and fun and playfulness. And I was actually just talking to a good friend of mine recently about how we just wish people laughed more. We wish like people were more joyful. I want to see people like not take themselves so seriously,
Yeah.
right? Because
Because
that's who we
the more
are.
you take, you don't here's what I'm also learning, and I'm spot on with that. The more you take you're kind to yourself and
Yeah.
take yourself lightly, you're increasing your ability to take others lightly.
Right.
It literally starts with the looking at yourself and getting to the essence of who you are and who your authentic self is
Yeah.
and love that person. And the
Right.
more you love the person with the faults and the weaknesses and
Yeah.
the things where you've messed up and really love who it is, I'm
Yeah.
noticing my ability to love and accept things more, people more,
Yeah.
circumstances more,
Yeah.
laugh a little bit more.
Hmm. Well, what actually you just hit on too that was coming up for me is around like how being your authentic self actually serves other people at the same time, because then you're not projecting your own domestication or expectations on other people. So whether that's in your role as a leader at work, as a parent, as a spouse, as a whoever, you are in your life, like we are also by nature potentially domesticating other people and not allowing them to figure out for themselves what their truth is and who they really are. And so the exercise of figuring out your own authenticity and how to let go of some things can also help you let other people become authentic and not apply the pressure of your domestication on them. I have a tattoo on my wrist that my watch is covering, but it's a bee tattoo, and I'll show it. And unfortunately, people who are just listening.
That's
So
awesome.
thank you. My sister got it too. So what this means to me and the reason I got it is because there was a season of my life recently, not too long ago, when I started out on my own as a consultant and a coach, that I felt some level of like shame about the fact that corporate just didn't work for me anymore in this season of life. And I had my domestication, part of my domestication, growing up was that like I needed to make that work. Like that had to work for me. And it just didn't anymore. I did it for 20
Yeah.
years. It just didn't anymore. Not to say it never will again. It's just a seasonal thing potentially. But either way, I realized that I am authentically most happy when I am like a bee, going from thing to thing, going from pollinator to, or being a pollinator, and
Yeah.
going here and adding a little value, and going here and adding a little value. And that still serves, well, it serves a major purpose in the world, because as you've probably heard, without bees in the world, we would be very screwed.
Humanity. Yeah. Humanity is,
Humanity would be in jeopardy without bees. And so I feel like that's part of my value that I bring, is that I can show up as I can show up for an occasion. I can show up for a task. I can show up for a person. I can show up for whatever the thing is. And I need to just accept that about myself and be fine with it and not carry the shame of like, I'm not something else. I'm not
yes.
wired for a different type of
So,
thing.
yes. And so again, take off. So the shame is also like shame and guilt is things that we put over us, right? It's
Yeah.
things that bring up your picture again real quick of your 4-year-old self.
Okay.
So by you being the bee and you
Yeah.
being who you are and saying, you know what, I'm taking off the belief that
Yeah.
corporate no longer serves me. How are you honoring her?
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with like the jeans being the denim leg prisons. Like that girl was like shamelessly wearing, top to bottom matching sweatsuits because she was like, this is what works for me. It's comfortable. I look amazing. I feel amazing. And it's like the same thing with like shedding the, whatever was making me feel imprisoned by the corporate environments I was working in, which isn't for all of them. Some are
Yeah.
wonderful. This is not a knock on corporate, but for me, it was not feeling it did not feel authentic anymore. It felt over domesticated. It felt very much like I was being asked to serve a role that in my core was not aligned with who I was. So that's me reconnecting with my former sweatsuit self.
Well, and you also mentioned how creative you are, right?
Yeah.
When you're saying I was under the staircase and just constantly like imagining and dreaming and building and creating and by you saying, you know what, this is not for me.
Yeah.
Let me say yes to that I need to go create. I need to go
Yeah.
other places and pollinate so I can be who I am and
Yeah.
create the impact that you want to have. Oh,
Right.
it's so beautiful. So here's what I'm wondering as we kind of here's what I'm longing for our listeners today. if you haven't recently, no matter wherever you're at in your age of your life, acknowledge what chapter you're in, like in that like 7 phase like chapter. What chapter are you in and what's beautiful about it? And go get a picture of yourself from like 0 to 10 and look at it, study it, like
Yeah.
almost like fall in love.
Yeah.
Because for some, this is going to be really hard, especially if you've had like things that have happened really young, or maybe if you were traumatized or what have you.
Yeah.
Like getting to know, like allow yourself the time, even if it's hard, okay, do what you can a little bit.
Yeah.
But how do you slowly start to chip away and like, what's the essence?
Right.
What are the words that describe who you are?
Yeah.
And allow yourself to get to know him or her.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Remember yourself. You're in there.
Remember yourself. You're in there. Peel away all the layers. Take all the expectations off and just you and that person and
Yeah.
nothing else. Get to know it. Get connected with that energy
Yeah.
again.
Absolutely. I love that.
I love that. I love this topic.
Yeah.
Authenticity. And it is the bee. What was coming up for me, you mentioned the bee. I also think butterflies.
Yeah.
I love the butterfly and the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
And back to the butterfly, that we're talking about this awakening, the actual process to become a butterfly when you're in the chrysalis, that's hard.
Yeah.
You're literally transforming. That there's no, it's hard.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if you actually come out of the chrysalis
Mhm.
before you're ready, the butterfly can actually die. So
Absolutely.
there's so much learning and sitting and being curious in the hard seasons of life.
Right.
There's so much growth that can happen there.
Yeah.
But man, when you come out,
Yeah. I know.
um,
That's the same thing with the
as the
bee. I mean, sometimes it stings. Sometimes people want to swat at you because they don't like what you're doing. But you kind of still have to keep on keeping on, right?
Yeah, keep on keeping on, keep that pollinating going,
Yeah,
spreading the joy because it's needed.
exactly. So on
Rebecca,
that note,
anything? Yep.
yeah.
Close us out. Bring us home.
All right. So on that note, I would challenge everybody who's listening to return to their authentic self, even if it's just for a minute. Pay attention to who you were when you were younger and just try to remember yourself and see how much of that you can bring into this current season of life.
Yeah. And in your day to day and in the moments as you're living life.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to What in the Well today.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of What in the Well. Be sure to review, rate, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, share it in the comments. Stay well until we meet again.